because if you have the ownership, like just in this example of your data, if you have the ownership of your data and you can actually sell it and make money out of this can be money that you can use to live your life. So you can you can have like a base salary, but it's not the government that is paying you. It's just you making money out of your data. So nowadays there are many services that we use and we feel they are free, but it's because we don't understand how we are paying those services, like Facebook or like Google, or even your bank account. Many times you don't pay your bank to open a bank account. So there are many services that we use and we feel that they are free and we like that they are free, but it's because we don't understand what we are paying.
Hello and welcome to the Style is Free podcast. We are back on Roosevelt Island at Cornell Tech, and today I am talking with Vicente Rotman. He is a blockchain engineer at ConsenSys and finishing up his degree in health tech at Cornell Tech. So thanks for coming on today, Vicente.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what is a blockchain engineer? What type of things do you work on?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I am working on a specific project inside ConsenSys called Linnia, which is a data protocol. So it's like very technical. Yeah, we build like smart contracts and then services to interact with the smart contracts. So, well, we build a lot of tools for developers and also like front end and stuff in which users can actually interact with blockchain applications.
Awesome. So you're more right now making tools for other blockchain developers to work with blockchain?
Yeah. That's the project I am working on.
Awesome. Are there any other projects you're working on that you're actually the blockchain developer, like creating a blockchain or like working with blockchains in a different way besides just the dev tools?
Well, in ConsenSys, most of the projects use the Ethereum blockchain. So we don't actually build new blockchains, but we build tools and blockchain applications in the Ethereum network. So
what has drawn you to blockchain? Because I've been around you for the past 2 years around, and I know it's like very dedicated to blockchain and you love it. Like, what brings you to it?
Yeah. Well, I started, I think, the same as most of the people with like trading cryptocurrencies, I don't know, buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all of those cryptocurrencies, and then trading. Well, I started actually building like an arbitrage algorithm. I realized that there were different prices in different exchange markets. So in some exchange market, you can buy some cryptocurrency cheaper and then sell it in another one for more price. So that was happening a lot. It's happening less now. So I started like that, building an algorithm to actually trade and earn money. So it works for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. Then I started having more troubles. Then, well, in the beginning it was all about cryptocurrencies. And then here in Cornell Tech, I took the blockchain class with Ari Jules, and I started realizing that actually there's a lot more in blockchain than cryptocurrencies, and the technology have like a huge potential in many industries. So I get very excited about the technology itself. So then I started studying more, and then I started working at ConsenSys, and now I'm like fully focused on building this decentralized world.
That's awesome. So when you say there's a lot more potential besides just cryptocurrencies, what are some of the potential use cases of blockchain that really excite you?
Well, I think that it's a technology that is just starting. It's everything. We can say that everything is still in diapers. So it is difficult to imagine like what's gonna happen when this actually like gets integrated everywhere. But like short-term applications that you can see, you can imagine blockchain as a trusted third party. So it's like you can run a program and decide on a set of rules, and then nobody can actually change the rules unless that's a rule. So basically, well, many people think that is this idea that you cannot change anything after you deploy, but it's not like that, because you can actually set one rule that it's that some organization or some people under some circumstances, they can actually change the rules. So applications that I can imagine in short term can be, for example, like an insurance company. So that's all about trust. How an insurance company works is mostly this idea of pooling risk. So if you're scared that your house can get burned and then you will need to pay a lot of money, and I am scared of the same, what we can do is decide, okay, if my house get burned or yours, then we both are gonna pay. So then in the case of the event, you will pay less money, but it's more risky. That's basically an insurance. You pay all the time, so you're paying a lot more. But in the case of the event, you have to pay way less. So we could actually build a blockchain application in which we define a set of rules. So under which circumstances the insurance is gonna pay, and like what happens if you stop paying your monthly fee. So then you can have this set of rules that actually, well, that's what is called a smart contract that can actually handle the money. And in the case of an event, it will pay the people that the house was burned, in keeping with this example. So it's this trusted third party that will always follow the rules that we decided previously.
Yeah, that's a great example. Are there any people or companies working on an insurance-based blockchain smart contract?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I think it's a very good example to explain like what is the potential, but an insurance company is way more actually than just handling this money and pay the people. So it's not something that is that easy to.
Right, and I would imagine, does all of it have to be in cryptocurrency when you're using the smart contract to guarantee that's what's being transacted? Like, we get paid back, you have to be paid back for your whole house in cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I see that actually that's something that it will take time in order to blockchain to become something like real. It's very important, the adoption of the cryptocurrency. So, yeah.
Right. And so what are your thoughts on that there's so many different cryptocurrencies as well? Like, what you think there's going to be a few that make it out, or there's just going to be an exchange of all the different cryptocurrencies in the exchange markets, or how will that play out when you're making these smart contracts that rely heavily on like a certain type of cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, ideally we would like to have only one cryptocurrency, but that's not how the world works. So I think probably there will be a lot of cryptocurrencies, maybe different cryptocurrencies in actually different industries with different uses, like use cases. But yeah, I think it's very likely that there are a lot of them in the future. Actually, most of the project in ConsenSys, we are not actually building cryptocurrencies or working with cryptocurrencies. We just assume that one of them is going to work. For now, we're using Ethereum because technology-wise it's very good, and it's also the one that have the biggest community of developers building on top of this. So in terms of technology, the one that I most believe that it can actually work globally and scale is Ethereum, mostly because of the amount of people and engineers that are working on that.
Definitely. Yeah, I've definitely heard that from many people that Ethereum is super developer friendly and kind of made for developers, that they can create these smart contracts, create their own tokens, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and really create different communities and platforms to use these cryptocurrencies. So what else interests you within cryptocurrencies or blockchains? Like, where do you see the future going in it?
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about the future, the decentralized future with blockchain. There are many different potential scenarios. One that things that I think it will happen and they're very interesting is, for example, this concept of DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So that's something that many projects are building, and it's this idea of having an organization that can iterate through itself. So basically, I don't know, you can have like a list of people that can actually decide to change some rules, but actually the same community can vote in order to add or remove people from the list. So those lists are usually called TCR, like a token curated registry. So you could have this list as like a board or an organization that can take some decision, maybe not everything, but only some decisions. So then the same community can maintain this board of people, for example, that can actually iterate through the organization itself.
That's interesting. I've seen DAOs mentioned, but I never really knew what they were. That's a very interesting concept. I can see it being played in, like you're saying, an organization, like a company, but also politics, right? Like voting, and you have representatives that would be the board in this case, and the people vote on who the representatives are, and if you don't like someone, you could vote them out. And so it's really interesting. Are there any organizations currently using like a DAO structure that are working out well that you know of?
Yeah, there are actually many frameworks in order to build the DAOs. For example, well, there is one that is growing a lot. It's called Aragon, and it's a framework in order to build DAOs. So basically, you can use this in order to build your DAO with like any purpose. There is also a very interesting project inside ConsenSys called GovernX. So as the name it sounds, what they are trying to do, or their final goal, is to at some point build some kind of like government structure that can actually like set rules and like make them executed and define people that can actually change the rules, and all of this decentralized organization. Well, I would like to talk a little bit more about the project I am working on. I think it's very interesting, and I have an idea on how I can see this potentially changing the world. So the project I am working on is the data protocol. So currently, many digital services store data on your name. But what happened now is that they store them in their central servers, and they basically owns and manage your data.
Right. And you're saying non-blockchain corporations and organizations.
Yeah. I mean any central service, any digital service that you use now. Like, I don't know, you use Facebook, or you use Google, or you use your Fitbit, or whatever. They generates data. Right. And all of this data, it's like your data, but basically they store it and they manage it. So with Linnia, with this data protocol, the idea is that any app could use the protocol in order to store and manage the data. And what would happen is that the data will be stored in IPFS, which is this distributed storage network. So basically your data will be stored in different computers around the network, and it will be encrypted by a key that only the end user have. So this will mean that the user will need to be more responsible, because they will need to manage basically their keys, but then they can decide to give access to which part of their data to whom. So for example, imagine you use a social network. Mm-hmm. So then all the data will be stored and encrypted with the end user key, and then the user decide to share the data with the social media. So then whenever the user wants, he or she can decide to stop sharing the data with the social media, and then they won't have access to that data anymore.
And they can limit what pieces of the data. It's not like an all or nothing.
Yeah, it's not all or nothing. So that's the protocol we're building. It's open source and it's completely free. So the thing is, I don't know, in this same example of the social media, you could actually, like the social media, instead of being like a big data holder, it could be basically a service that you decide to hire. So you share the data with them. But if a new social media come that have like a better service, or for any reason, better features, whatever, for any reason you want to move, you could decide to like stop sharing with the old social media, start sharing with the new social media, and you don't even need to move physically where your data is stored. They will immediately have access to all of your social media data, like all of your friends, all of your data, all of your posts. So then basically all of these digital services, they actually become services, and the one that owns the data is the end user.
That's very interesting. Yeah, just thinking how social media platforms and web development work right now. You're saying that you own the database side of things. It's not being stored on someone else's server somewhere, or at least it is in a decentralized fashion, but a company doesn't own your data. And they have to actually convince you to allow them to use your data, so you can kind of get the front end and maybe back end services from them to visualize your data, or to like run computations on it, or probably more interesting stuff socially than that. But